Um, I have definitely been someone who goes top lane and goes like and plays against players who understands top lane a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't understand top lane and you go to top lane and play against a pretty good player, you're gonna have a hard time. So Towson could have just swapped their players like that, and why we didn't see it there was.
Hey, never pick a fight you can't.
Woo! Woo!
I mean,
Sad.
They banned them. Sad days.
How do you say our support's name?
Neonara.
Neonara. Okay, sweet. I just didn't want to butcher it and be mean. B. Emily. I love that name.
Neonara is an amazing artist.
I have some of their art.
Yeah, they
Extra Life.
They have their own Etsy shop where they sell their art.
Wait, really? I didn't know that.
Neonara.
Is that
their
Etsy shop?
They also sometimes sell Vault.
Ooh.
It's a Patreon.
Oh, it's a Patreon that they do, not an Etsy?
But they have an Etsy shop though.
Okay. I'll have to look it up.
I have it bookmarked.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they recently changed it, but
now we get to sit here for 3 minutes.
Maka from
I love Soul Eater.
For Patreon? I'm gonna write a sticky note. I love Maka.
If you can find a pen in here.
Oh my gosh. You know what? Just put this on my purse and I'll know what it means.
Wait.
I'm gonna
draw a Cassidy.
Patreon Maka. The name of our player that I won't say on stream. Keep their identity safe. We are starting this new segment. You cannot see this segment, but we're gonna tell you what we're gonna do. The coach's desk we are at is filthy. Absolutely disgusting. Not really. So we have decided that we are going to fail to connect.
Oh.
Uh-oh. We have decided we are going to write a bunch of sticky notes and just cover his desk with sticky notes.
Mm-hmm. So I've already drawn him a TF sticker, and because that's who he mains in League. And then he told me he mains Cassidy in Overwatch. So now he's getting a Cassidy sticker that says howdy. And
we might have just crashed. We'll see. We'll see.
We might have to grab tech.
I'm gonna mute real quick while you yell across the room. All right, everyone, we're gonna have to stop the stream right now. We gotta close down and restart. The Riot client has completely stopped working for us, so we will be back.
Oh wait, wait. We're here.
Riot heard. We'll wait here. As soon as I was gonna have my co-caster turn off the stream, it heard us. So, the Halloween the Halloween event the UC is putting on October 31st on Halloween. The Nightmare Before Christmas is the theme for this year. And we had got Oogie Boogie Operation. And instead of the like Operation does, he says voice lines from the movie.
Ooh, it has in the draft.
Line.
Wait, go to the game.
Now that we've loaded in. There's nothing here for him.
There we go. Woo! You guys can watch about Overwatch League.
So as we were playing Operation, Oogie Boogie went, Bone Daddy, and we were like, what? And I was like, did I hear that right? And so we kept pushing it and go through his voice lines, and he said it again. He was like, Bone Daddy. We all looked at each other and was like, what is happening? So we looked it up, and there's a scene, not from Oogie Boogie, but in this movie, there's a scene where Jack Skeleton, he walks by this group of jazz players, and he drops a coin in their hat, and they're like, oh, nice work, Bone Daddy. I was like, what is this scene?
In a kids movie?
So then the whole time we're sitting there, and this kid's game was like, oh, Bone Daddy. And we were just laughing so hard. I was like, but if you think about it, if I said it just casually, you'd be like, what are you talking about? But in that time, like, Daddy-O was like a
father. Like
it was a slang for like 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 20 slang stuff. But it was just
nowadays it's a little different.
It's a little so that's my sticky note around Jack Skellington. But now that we are in game, very nice cue from the MF player. They did pick Aatrox into Garen. I'm double checking that we are on the right sides. Yes, we are. Aatrox is so good right now. Oh, look at him. He's going. Wait, there was actually something happening top lane and directed camera at the fight. And you know what?
Nah, let's go bot.
We're moving bot.
Ooh.
This is just an empty.
Just an empty sticky note he gets.
All right. So.
Ooh.
Nice and emoting going on from Towson.
There's a way we can turn off emotes, I was told.
Well, so the NECC rules, you're not supposed to do that. Unless previously agreed by both teams.
And we didn't agree.
I don't
know. Ooh. Looks like our bot laner. And I think
Towson could do whatever do, but we ask our players to be respectful and stuff in games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So tis naughty.
Naughty not. That'll go on the empty sticky note.
Bring out the nanny McPhee. Volibear is gonna secure Red Scuttle here. Topside River Scuttle. Malzahar might get ganked here. Volibear's going mid. Direct the camera do not want us to see that at all.
Our mid laner's backing. And that looks like our jungle's going bot to help.
Yeah, bot. Our jungler might be going bot to take Krogs, maybe. They are almost up. Rag is up in 40,
42, 41, 40.
38,
30.
Oh, flash by Montana's mid laner there. Did not get caught up from the Volibear. Aatrox doing Aatrox things top lane.
Garen doing Garen things.
Garen doing Garen. Mid lane, out of mana again. Might gonna go back and reset here. Get some damage on Sandra though.
Their mid laner's also backing. So Volibear's their jungler.
Yes.
Okay. Is he usually
The jungle
top laner?
bear. So he can play top, and he can play jungle. I've seen AP Volibear go mid before, and he just spams his lightning stuff. It's really annoying. Volibear bot lane, this jungler is everywhere.
Trying to catch our support player out.
Gotta ward up against this jungler. This Nami, though, I appreciate how aggressive this Nami is, though.
Looks like they might get the kill on the Nami here.
Yep.
But they might get our MF. Nope. MF gets away.
Might be okay.
But our Maokai looks to be fine. It's Maokai, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
When I first started playing League, I got Maokai and Malphite.
Looks like replay. They might try to get this top laner here.
Flashed from the Aatrox. Aatrox. Flash.
Ooh, and they get the kill.
I think that was a fair trade right there.
Yeah. Ooh, and it looks like they're trying to get, as our jungler was up top, their jungler got Drake. But first Drake isn't too important, is it?
Really, each drag gives you like little buffs. So they are nice to have.
It's when you get like 4, 3, 4 is when it starts sucking.
Yeah. But we have our mid laner top lane.
Open our top laner, clear out. Ooh.
And
is that Aatrox as their top laner?
Yep, Aatrox is top laner. We catch out the Lysandra here, gets drowsy, goes to sleep, and is knocked out for 10 seconds.
Majestic Squirtle is here. Let's go, Grizz.
So majestic. Our jungler goes back and resets. Our jungler play DK. Play.
I'm never not gonna hate that he wants that. I'm never not gonna hate that. I'm just gonna start calling him that in person and be like, hey, we play DK.
The rebranding.
We should just say anything that starts with re that way. Remember
to clean your desk.
Please, Maverick.
Aatrox going absolutely insane, going mad lad top lane.
Ooh, Garen is spinning and doing Garen thing.
Spinning the win.
He's a spinny boy.
Demacia for life.
Ooh, and it looks like is about 1k in gold.
Oh,
but it looks like a
4-party bot lane.
Ooh.
It is warded nicely by our bot lane. Aatrox is doing Rift. I'm gonna click up here because I can't see. Yep, Aatrox is doing Rift.
Not show. Ooh, it looks like a replay. Replay! Might try to steal this. Ooh, and our top laner is going down to hell.
Volibear ults onto the Malzahar, and Lysandra gets a kill on our mid laner.
Ooh, and they're going up to help up here.
Really fighting over this Rift. UM is at a player disadvantage, though.
And decides to back off. They get Shelly, unfortunately.
No, looks like everyone. Oh, no.
Yeah. De-warding. Good, that blooba.
The nice
on our tower down there.
Nami went all the way up there and is going to swim herself down back to bot lane. But MF really tries to go. Oh, don't commit. Oh, oh my gosh. Flash from the MF. Jin gets a Maokai. That was really aggressive.
For the Jin.
From Montana.
Oh, from Montana.
Yeah, they went in really wanting to get the kill.
Spin to win there
It's
in bot lane.
It's those instincts of I need to have this. I have to have this. And it gets you in trouble sometimes. But replay DK puts the Jin asleep. Not the aggressive Nami though. I respect. This is not trolling. I respect aggressive Nami players because I think they are the best supports. Is aggressive Nami supports.
Ooh.
Ult from Malzahar onto the Volibear. Replay DK. Ooh. Getting some damage in.
It looks like their mid laner decided to hold back off, but it looks like UM might be going for it. Trying to get that kill there.
They might try to collapse on this Lissandra, but she gets out. Nayonara chasing down this Lissandra. Ooh, roots to Lissandra, pushes her back. Lissandra also, beautiful ult, beautiful skin. Nayonara just autoing away. Lissandra fast.
Ooh, and it looks like their top laner is trying to go and help. But it looks like
Aatrox is down here.
Oh, a flash.
Oh, from
and Hyde gets it.
Okay,
and then just tank me later is spinning to win.
Looks like that was a Garanol. Oh.
Ooh.
What is going on here?
Where the Volibear.
Here
oh my gosh. So is the Nami.
Nami with Nara. Volibear's going in. Oh, that heal bounce from the Nami. The bubble, so close. Volibear's really
spin to win. Oh, and Volibear goes down. Will Nami go down here? Yes.
What is happening in this game? I love it.
And Replay DK was just chilling in the river right next to all of that happening. Sorry, Replay DK.
Our mid laner is now 4-1.
Oh wow!
Crazy fights. It's that instinct of I need this kill.
Their support has the most kills than Nami. The aggressive Nami.
Aggressive Nami's going.
Oh wait, I like the Volibear's name. Love you gently.
That's
and then Rex Uwu right below it.
Rex Uwu.
Rex Uwu is going in.
Going in. Nayonara D-wording has good support.
And it looks like is Drag up?
Drag is up.
So it looks like UM might be at least our mid laner might be wanting to go for it. Or not mid laner, jungler.
Yeah, looks like they're pinging for drag. Really want to do this.
But we're just gonna watch top lane. We're just gonna watch Garen Sin to win. Here we go.
Oh, Malzahar going in. Gets the shield off. Ults the Lissandra though. Lissandra ults. Fight happening, drag. MF gets bubbled. Volibear goes.
Ooh, and Replay DK gets the drag there.
Jin falls asleep. Celia really trying to get away. Volibear gets the kill on the MF though. Malzahar doing some good burn damage on the Jin.
Looks like they're trying to go for the Volibear there, but I think the enemy team will get away here. And we had a map change there from a dragon. It was a fire boy.
Fire boy. Burning the map.
Fireball, burn it. Sorry.
Oh my god.
Spin to win, Garen.
Garen's going in.
Oh!
But the Aatrox was... Oh
Oh, that was a really good play there.
that was good. Oh my goodness.
I love Lilia's little trot. She goes.
She's so cute.
Lovely, love you gently is just farming.
Gently hitting some wolves.
He's just patting them. Giving him a nice little pat. And here we are dewarding.
Dewarding. The funnest job.
Oh my god, how many words do they need in that bush?
They have a lot. They are ready.
They are ready for when someone just sits there.
Bot lane, better be careful here. Volibear
is coming to help me.
There is a ward there. Good ward from whoever put that there.
Helped them back off. This could be any man's game
like
here.
Coming mid.
To help out mid.
There's a ward there. I don't think the Lissandra quite saw that. But she still gets away. I think she was about ready for it.
Looks like Nami might be going mid to help too.
Spin to win.
Spin to win.
That
they haven't used Shelly yet.
They have.
They have? Okay.
Where did Shelly go down?
Yeah.
They don't have the
It might have been mid because that tower's the lowest. I don't think they used it, though. I don't remember seeing it.
Did it happen while we were watching a different fight, maybe?
Probably. It's usually how this directed camera works. Ooh, and it looks like Replay DK got the Lissandra. Rex Uwu goes down.
Rex Uwu
goes down.
Ooh, get some damage there on the Jin. Getting chased by this Nami, though.
Spin to win is happening again.
Marcia!
Ooh, but it looks like Replay DK is coming. Ooh, but there was a ward there, so he was seen.
Aatrox ults get away. Aatrox fight them. He wants the Garen. He doesn't know who to go for. There's a TP from Lissandra.
What? Okay. Oh, and it looks like our Lissandra
takes down Lilia.
And it looks like our tank melee leader is also going to go down. So we just have our mid and bot up still. So they might try to push up top here.
Mm-hmm.
They got a turret. Where?
Mid lane.
Oh, we got a turret. Okay. I was like, where did they get a turret? I see all ours still standing.
Aatrox backing to reset. Bolivar is taking Shelly. Mid is bot.
Oop. Get in that.
Nothing much happening here, though. Nami did have the bushes warded. She has a lot of vision down there.
They're just like, no one ain't gonna gank us.
Uh-huh.
Oh my god, so many visions. Uh-oh. Her Nayunara. No, get down. Ooh, maybe try to take mid lane here.
Sandra Farman. Nayunara. Good morning.
Replay doing jungle things. Replay doing jungle things.
Play DK.
And then here we are, back at top, watching them poke each other.
Mm-hmm. He brought a sword to a sword.
Next time, bring a gun. Like a Superman costume for Garen?
So Garen, have you ever played Grand Theft Auto Vice City?
Mm-mm.
Way before your time, centuries before your time. There's this game. Shout out to Monkey Ball Matt walking by the production studio. Bowser Howler's little brother.
Mm-hmm, my little baby brother.
Little baby brother.
I convinced him to join the program, so I'm kind. Ooh, we got a team fight happening.
Team fight happening. TP probably for Lissandra. Malzahar ults Lissandra. Wait, that was not a TP.
Oh, and our MF goes down. Aatrox is going after our jungler.
You have 4 lanes. Oh, bubble for the Nami onto Nayunara. Aatrox with the double kill.
Ooh. Oh my gosh.
Triple kill by Aatrox. He is going for it. Lissandra looking a little low. Gonna get out safely. Aatrox poking. No, but Grand
the
Theft Auto,
I think, is on the dragon.
Oh yeah. Securing that.
Yeah.
But it has this 80s Miami theme to it. And he has a skin. Which is
they are really
basically at the protagonist from the game. And then Lucian has a matching skin, which is the protagonist's best friend in that game.
Oh, are Garen and Lucian? Ooh, it looks like
yeah.
And we stole the Infernal Dragon. Great play from
Hannah steals
Nayunara there.
Where was his smite down?
Maybe
Did he
just
smite early? Maybe
he might have early. Let's see. Yeah, his
Shelly
smite
going
was
down.
down. Unfortunate for the volley bear. Oh, there goes Shelly. They finally let it out.
This is second Shelly.
Where did the first one go?
We must have missed it.
Maybe they let it off in the jungle or something. They're just like, let it go now.
Maybe we saw the fight top lane. That crazy fight top lane.
And Shelly was like bottom lane. And Shelly, unfortunately, was let off a little too early before the turret.
Maybe they didn't put it up.
Or maybe they just did what they did earlier.
The only tower we have lost is
top.
Maybe
and
she
we
put
just
some
lost.
damage somewhere? Rousey onto Lissandra. Lissandra falls asleep. Lissandra ults. That's a Maokai ult. Jin roots near Nara and
Replay
Jin
and
takes her
hide.
down.
Replay and hide are backing out of there. is down in gold here and in kills.
But it's not over yet.
I mean, I think it's very fair.
Oh no, it might be for Volibear. Volibear gets ulted. Volibear ults himself.
Ooh, and replay takes him down.
Amazing.
Ooh, and it looks like MF might be trying to get them out here. They're going for these two. Get the Nami.
Double bubble from Nami. Is Jin just too tanky?
I don't like Jins.
Jin is 3.
Dang, they got some. Oh my gosh, their Aatrox also has a nice.
Never judge a league gamer by their rank.
Mm-hmm.
This Jin's doing pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing work.
Tang me later, spinning to win. It looks like. Aatrox. Ooh, and Hyde is coming too. We have a TP
from Lissandra. Aatrox ult.
And backs off there.
They wanted.
Oh, and they have. Oh, I think they're doing a team fight, so MF can take a turret down. Yep. We get the Lissandra out there. Going for the Nami there.
Nami gets bubble on Garen.
Mm-hmm. MF is pushing up. The Jin looks like it's going to
answer MFA.
Mm-hmm.
MF on the back though. MF just wanting to farm at this point. Split push.
Ooh. is going for that Yumi. Or not Yumi, the Nami. Ooh, Nami. And we get the Volibear there too. Double kill for Hyde.
Nami ult. Malzahar ulted.
And just one team fight. brings it back to being very equal.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, and goes for Baron here. We might try to see a steal here.
Jin does have ult.
Mm-hmm.
And could be waiting. Aatrox pushing down mid though. Malzahar leaving to go into Aatrox.
And unfortunate. The Jin ult was a little too late.
Ooh. Almost got the Garen there.
Uh-huh.
And mid tower almost goes down.
Replay.
Oh, the Lissandra comes in and takes out Garen.
Looks like
she falls asleep, but ults. Maokai ults. Lissandra gets rooted. Nara takes down the Lissandra.
We might see a mid.
I don't know why that was so funny. The Lissandra just came in and
just went
Garen.
Just came into it. Boop, you're dead.
Oh my goodness.
We see some farming. Yeah. Farming here. The next drag is up in 50 seconds, though.
Dewarding.
Probably getting ready to do drag.
Uh-huh. Drag up in 34 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Looks like is planning it too. Taking down some wards here.
Throwing some seeds.
Ooh.
Malzahar's top. Maybe gonna get that turret. Lissandra entering mid. It is a 4v4 here. Aatrox is ready to go in though. Lissandra is here.
Their Aatrox is very aggressive, and it looks like we're gonna get top turret here.
Mm-hmm. Aatrox wanting to go in. Try to get someone picked out. Malzahar TPs to turret.
To come help, so it's a 5v5. Ooh, going for Garen.
Bubble.
Good MF ult there, though.
Nami ult.
No.
Ult happening.
I hate.
Aatrox ulted, it looks like.
Oof.
Both teams are fine.
Is Nami on the dragon?
So Lissandra, I think, was dewarding dragon to prep it. Both teams really wanting this dragon. Lanes are pushing into Towson's.
Ooh, and replay takes down the Nami massive. The Volibear goes down. Oh my gosh. Lysandra goes down.
Malzahar ult.
Jin goes down. Oh, that was an ace, not an ace, but like a
Yeah,
ace from Garen. Nice.
Yeah.
And gets the 3rd dragon there.
Really early smite from replay.
He needs to replay. DK needs to work on that smite.
Work on that smite.
Looks like they're planning on pushing up mid and bot.
Work on your smite.
Takes down another turret. Might try to take down another here.
Every points numbers he's off from smite, he has to do that many push-ups. You need to do like 160 push-ups. You miss that smite. That's how you train yourself to get better at smite.
How many deaths he has? He has to do 10 sit-ups for as many deaths as he has. So right now, he has to do 20 right now. If he dies again.
The amount of gold difference between the teams.
Mm-hmm.
No matter who wins or loses, you do that many squats and lunges.
I mean, he's been complaining that he's been missing the gym, so
there you go.
We're just helping him out.
Do 7,000 squats.
No, how much gold they get? He has to eat that many calories. He needs
you
to
only get 47 calories today. That's all you get.
No, 47,000. It's up in the case.
I didn't think we were gonna go that far, but you were ready with.
Hey, he's been complaining he hasn't been bulking lately.
You need the 48,000 calories.
Come on, replay DK.
The drowsy onto the Nami ult though.
He rewatches these later, so he'll know we said this. Ooh, and we get the
amazing ult from the MF.
Ooh, going for our Garen.
Takes down Volibear.
Oh!
No.
Our poor Malachi's taking the blunt of it.
Goodness.
At least he's kind of tanky now.
Wanting to take someone out.
Ooh, nice dodge from the Lysandra there. And we get a inhibitor, that's the name.
Yes. Red buff going to MF. Is that your neck?
Yeah.
That just snapped your neck into. Woo! Oh my gosh. ASMR.
You guys want to hear some ASMR of me cracking my knuckles? Ooh. Wait.
Oh my gosh. That was disgusting.
That was my spine. Ooh, I think that is a 6K difference in gold here.
Like DK, better get the donuts and pots of chili ready.
Donuts and pots of chili.
Donuts and pots of chili.
Donuts sound so good.
I was gonna buy us some donuts, but they're all out at Gaming Den.
I know, it was so sad.
They're all fit.
I'll probably go to Winco after this and get some food.
Oh my gosh, I'm starving. I ate.
Oh.
I had tacos. Actually, no, I had a burrito. I lied to you. I had a burrito.
I can't believe you're lying to me already.
I'm sorry.
Tomato tato. Garen's winning to spin. Ooh, and we take
to win. Demacia all the way. TP from the Lysandra.
Ooh, it looks like our Garen might go down here. Jin takes him down.
Jin takes a nap.
And
Volibear was trying to get the Malzahar. Malzahar had Zonia's.
our Malzahar goes down. Their Lysandra goes down. Our Malachi goes down. And replay. Oh my gosh.
He went. He walked back to the MF. What?
So everyone's dead.
Can we not? Everyone's dead. All right. We're going to have a little MSMR here. I don't even know what I'm saying here. Was he trying to smite a rapper to get health back? Because that was the Lysandra passive that killed him. I don't think I've ever seen that anytime I've casted a game before, both teams aced. The right camera just
in
sat there
history.
like, well,
it was like, yeah, who do I watch now?
That was great. That was enjoyable.
Ooh, and Dreg is almost up, so it looks like both teams are going there. Probably
both teams are resetting healthy. They're great.
Yeah. Towson going to try to probably stop Yuan from getting their 4th Dreg here. That was a very interesting team fight. That was
good. That was great. I wonder if replay DK was trying to life still. I don't think he could have got out of that with
trying to get down their tanky player.
All from
Aatrox.
the Maokai, and they all dodged it. They're just gonna do drag. Volibear, not there.
Ooh, and unfortunately the Jhin was a little too late on that ult to steal that drag.
Took the drag, so that means somebody missed their smite.
20 push-ups.
He didn't smite. So that means...
Oh, he was trying to smite
what is the health of a dragon?
I don't know.
It's gotta be like a lot of health points, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how many push-ups he has to do because he didn't smite at all. He smited this though, but he should have smited dragon. So that means he has to do that many push-ups.
Let's see, how much health is a dragon? How much health
Don't dragons get more health later in the game too? Maybe.
Let's see.
Maybe he knew
3,500.
3,500 push-ups? How much does Baron have? Because if he decided to smite Baron instead of Dragon, that's smarter on him because that would mean he would do less
Baron?
push-ups. Baron. Because if he smited Dragon, that means he wouldn't have smite for Baron and he'd have to do 9,000 push-ups. So he knew. He was smarter on that one. That's why.
He's watching stream. Not there.
Out of nowhere.
Got replay DK in there. Oh, and it looks like Volibear.
Demacia for the win. Stunned by the bubble though.
Oh my! And Nami goes down by MF. Dewarding.
Dewarding.
UM trying to take this tower here.
I need more sour Skittles. I might just buy a giant bag of Winco when you've done this. Lysandra goes in, roots and ult.
And replay DK goes down.
Jhin goes in. This Jhin popping off.
Oh my gosh. And it looks
Jhin
like
ulting.
our Maokai might go down here.
Maokai got rooted.
Unfortunate for our Maokai here.
Look at this Jhin though. He's so good.
Mm-hmm. Their Lysandra also has a bounty on her now.
She went in. She just went right in as Lysandras do.
Mm-hmm. They might try to push up a lane here because most of UM is dead.
Yep. Garen just...
At least I think they would.
Alone.
But... Poor Garen.
Spinning for no one but himself.
Do his little ballerina spin. I think his parents put him in ballet. That's why he does it.
I am so tired.
I had to pee really bad. I've been so thirsty lately. I've been drinking water nonstop.
Me too.
Thanks,
Bowser's getting better at this commentary stuff. You are.
Thank you. I'm trying.
It's hard. I don't know what I'm doing here.
Me
What is this
either.
game?
I don't know. Look, they're squashing a bug. Ooh, looks like they're gonna try to let Lysandra here. Lysandra roots it again. Oh, they decided to back off.
It's like a horror game when a Garen chases after you.
You're like, ah! I would be screaming. Ooh, dewarding?
Dewarding?
This is a long game. 33-36.
Longer this game goes,
The more I have to pee. Oh. He has to do how many push-ups for how many minutes the game goes. Encourages him to finish sooner.
Maybe that's as long. So if it's 30, if it gets to like 45 minutes, that means he has to do a wall sit for 45 minutes. And if he breaks, he has to restart the timer. Okay, we can do wall sits or planking.
Planking. Planks are
Wall sits
so...
are terrible.
Planks are even worse because it's a full body workout.
That's true. But when you drink a lot of soda, wall sits are terrible. That's what we had to do in volleyball. They made
Oh,
us do ball sticks all the time. I'm like, I hate this.
Cody agrees. Make them plank.
Make them play.
He's
All right.
he's military. He should be able to do it. Easy stuff for our replay, DK.
Replay.
My face is so dry. The changing of the seasons just.
I was gonna say something. I didn't know my words. I only apply lotion to my face after I've showered because it helps keep that moisture trapped in your face for longer after you shower. And my winters have been better for my dry face.
I've been trying to. I apply every time I shower at home. I apply lotion all over my body, including my face. Ooh.
My idea.
I just saw a League player walk by.
League player walk by. That means the game has ended. Spoilers.
Or maybe they just died.
Both had an ace.
Yeah.
Some team fight happens
Right now.
right now.
Yeah, because like the
They're
death
just
is now a
dancing
minute.
around. Oh, Elder. This fight determines everything. At least for this game. You know. Everyone just dancing around, trying to get some picks. Ooh, replay with the hit with the drowsy with the sleeve. Malachi.
Oh, and no, it goes down. Oh,
Oh my god, look how so many people.
let's go. And UM gets this drag here. Three are down right now.
Wait, yeah,
Oh, they don't go for, they're finishing it. They're finishing rather than drag.
They're not focusing on objective and just going to end. Yay! They did
Has this been a lesson they've been trying to learn?
Yes.
You are peeking the mic.
Well,
Good.
You better turn us down.
Ooh, and we have a Jin ult here.
Jingle, he's trying.
And replay is going after. We get a turret. Oh, and we get the Jin down. An ace there from UM. And that is a good round for this first game.
Good job, UM. Oh, wait.
Okay, you guys don't know what we're laughing about, and I don't think we can say
We're
it.
just here to peek the mic.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You're welcome.
Well, we're going to mute and be back later.
I believe a secret special caster.
A new caster. You guys don't get to listen to me no more.
No, we peeked the mic, so we're fired.
Yeah. Thanks, Cody. You just got us fired. We just got that news.
All right.
Something went wrong.
All right.
We're gonna mute and scream for someone.
We're gonna mute and peek the mic.
All right, I don't know what's going on here, folks. Tomato, Tato, and Bowser Hauser has left us. I cannot talk. Left us, and it is me, eCascas, and I can currently see Duck's backpack in the doorway as we wait to start this cast.
No, we're already starting this cast.
Tomato Tato is standing there with the Kaiman article about the esports team, and then Fuzzy Squid is also in the doorway, but I think their door is going to close soon. We can talk about the game now.
We're getting enclosed in our
Farewell.
our glass box.
Untrue.
We're
Factually
getting
untrue.
enclosed in our glass box from a place I can't say on stream. I have to keep a
Yikes.
not potty mouth.
True.
So we're gonna see the Yumi ban, the Lucian ban, and the Katarina
When
ban.
they steal the MF Towson,
They're very scared of the
yeah, they didn't like the
MF
We were
Lilia
both-
thing.
while describing it to Fuzzy Squid, we were both doing like the gun,
The finger
the
gun.
finger guns.
Let's ban Bowser Hauser. I could not agree more.
Oh my goodness. The toxicity between the casters.
I was very excited to do this, and then it got stolen from me last week. So this is my first opportunity. As my compatriot is making silly faces at me.
Your teammate. Wait, your captain, isn't it?
My captain, in fact,
Yeah,
is
in
making
fact, your
goofy
captain.
faces at me through the glass
Distracting you.
and trying to distract me from this Braum Caitlyn lock-in. No fear shown from Montana.
Wait, is it? Okay, I'm not going to talk about the strategy, but Braum does very, very well into MF.
Yeah, he can like shut down the ult
He
big time.
completely negates it, right? Basically,
And then they can't pick anything like Ornn or anything like
Nope.
that.
they can't pick anything.
Any big
yeah,
projectiles.
any big projectile. Braum is like, no.
No, sorry. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200.
Okay.
The MF Nami. They seem to have a Nami thing.
I would assume the Nami might be just the supports like favorite pick because MF Nami is not like good. It's not.
Yeah, does the Jarvan into Caitlyn? I'm not a huge fan of that. She has a pretty easy time getting out of the
Yeah.
cataclysm.
And frankly, Caitlyn into MF is a miserable MF matchup. Normally, MF matchups are really good because her Q,
movement speed.
Well, no, her double up is roughly the distance that the enemy ADC has to stand from the opposing wave. So it's just free double ups. Caitlyn
Can stand
that's
farther
not-
back.
Yep, she can stand 75 units further back. Yeah.
I was thinking more like her movement speed. She could trade autos a lot easier.
Yeah, well, that as well, but her auto range is actually quite short
And
relative
the
to the other ADCs.
Pantheon lock-in. I'm assuming this is going to be mid.
Maybe it's a flex, right? It could go
Yeah.
all three, right?
Hey, this could be top, mid, or jungle.
So this is the standard. I wouldn't say standard UMT because we don't really know where Pantheon's going, but support, ADC, and either mid or jungle is very often how it's picked.
And they are not showing anything here. Looks like they're going to ban out the Lissandra from game one. Dean having flashbacks to getting a...
Like Gwen.
Oh.
Odd.
Well, no, they banned Gwen game one.
Oh, did they? Oh,
I think their top laner plays Gwen.
that would make
And
sense.
they're going to ban out the Victor from our mid laner because he's a bit of a freak on that.
He likes to. I can't imitate Victor, but he zaps him with the laser.
Glorious evolution.
Yeah, there you go. That was perfect. That's exactly what Victor says.
And then the Kled.
That's
yeah,
the spec ban, right? Our top.
probably going to be the Garen top lane, I think here. Probably just going to blind pick it, I would guess. Or the Maokai top lane, always
Okay.
ever present and ever busted.
But only if it could be Maokai Jungle. Maokai Jungle was my favorite. That's how I learned how to jungle. Was
Could still be Pantheon mid. There's a lot of options here. They're
very
kind of
flexible, which is very unique in league drafts, right? Like very often.
Gangplank top. That's throwing
So,
down the gauntlet
This
right
is
there.
that is a meta pick, right? All the high end, very high skill players. It's a high skill captain,
Very high skill.
very high skill floor champion. So we'll see if the game
They can pull it off. But I will say, every time I see a Gangplank in my game, I just want to cry because I know they're taking first strike, and I know they're blowing someone up at 15 minutes with full Trinity Force IE.
Yep, that's how it goes. And the Oriana Jarvan, that is the Wombo combo that we're looking for. I
Yeah,
think.
Oriana, Jarvan, MF, they are looking to blow
Can you
one or two people up.
Rom shield the Ori ball and so like
No.
like
Goes back to her. And then the Echo
I
jump.
really don't know where.
Yeah,
any
we'll
of
see
these-
once.
All three of these could go. All three. I have no idea.
I would assume it's gonna be. I don't think Echo has a very good matchup into Oriana. Actually,
Probably. Very, very likely.
I know Syndra and and Echo. Echo's like a counter to that, I'm pretty sure, but I don't think Orianna. I think Orianna has a better time. So we'll see as we get into a draft here. So they can't just ban random champions. They have
to ban, yeah,
in the same order.
A lot of like productions will do the draft LoL or pro draft off stream. They talk about it. I don't know, but that's like a lot of waiting, so we don't do that. But now we'll know where it goes. They're gonna
pick their champions.
They will pick their champions.
Okay. Oh, because they don't all have all the champions, so that
correct.
They don't want.
And a spoiler alert: this is a fun announcement for everybody here at the University of Montana. The University of Montana UC Gaming Den will now have League Unlocked.
Oh, what?
I believe every computer in the UC Gaming Den.
So it's going to be the Maokai top, Echo jungle. The Echo Pantheon mid has a lot of burst potential.
Yeah.
If they can blow Orianna's flash early on a early level 3 or 4 gank, you
could even level 2, or you can do like buff one camp and then just gank.
Yeah, the Red Rompters gank.
Yeah,
Red Rompters.
the Grompters? Yeah. A 2 camp into gank is a timing where Echo can get level 2 and push out faster than Ori because she cannot push very fast.
No, it's Pantheon.
Oh, no, but it's against Ori. I see. I misspoke. I meant to say Pantheon and then Echo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Pantheon can push out really against Ori?
Pantheon pushes really fast.
Oh. I thought he was going to just get autoed to death by the Orianna. No.
His Q is very good at pushing.
There you go. So, but I think Orianna's going to look to be a target here. Gangplank, they do have multiple forms of CC for Gangplank. He is tricky to gank because of his oranges and flash.
But Maokai has...
He has W and the knockback. And you can't cleanse a knockback.
Yeah, that's true.
So they can look... And I don't think we're going to see terribly much action bot lane. I think from Montana, I think they're going to look to target the solo lanes here.
Oh, and so we swapped out, Montana swapped out supports. So that was Nayunara, the Lulu Fanatic, the Yumi hate? No, somebody hates Yumi. I don't know who it is. But anyway, Hurricane Leopard comes in.
Jaguar.
Jet Jaguar hated Yumi? I think you're right. Oh, they had never bought Yumi. So I have a friend who did that. You just don't buy Yumi. That's a very common tactic.
Yeah, and then you just gift them Yumi with RP.
You could do that and ruin their day. That is true.
There are people that do that. I know there was someone who didn't. What were the old not fun champs? It was one of the old not fun champs to play against that people hated. I can't remember what it was, and someone in our friends.
That was something I hated.
Yeah, Alawi's terrible.
Yeah.
I think for Alawi, they changed Alawi in season 9, I want to say, to where you used to be able to hit Alawi with abilities, and it used to shorten the cooldown on her spirit.
On her spirit pull, yeah.
But
then they buffed. That was a huge change.
And that made it really unfun to play against. Yeah. Because if you saw an Alawi locked in, you used to be able to pick something like Teemo and just 1 Q and then a couple dot procs and the E was gone in.
That change put Alawi from like an okay matchup for my main Nasus to just you never pick it into Alawi.
Yeah.
It was just, it's so miserable as a bruiser.
I cannot. Every time I play against Alawi, I think, oh boy, it's time to play Dodging Simulator for 15 minutes. Because as soon as I get hit by the first E's not that bad. By the time I get hit by a second E in lane, it's not going to be very fun.
Yep, very true. Now we sit here for the spectator delay. A little bit unfortunate, but Duck, how do we feel about the drafts? Who won?
I don't know. I think I'm not personally a huge fan of Pantheon as a champion.
Who do you think has the easier to execute?
Easier to execute, I would very much say the other team, because they just Jarvan, Orianna, GPR, and MF ult, and just they can blow up. They get 2 people in the Jarvan ult, and they are pretty much dead if they don't have flash.
That is very, very true. I will say though,
the Maokai ult makes things.
Just in general though, Ori versus Panth and GP versus Maokai, both of those are like opposite ends of the spectrum on difficulty. I mean, I'm not saying that Ori is hard to play, but like they're just so unbelievably easy to execute.
Yeah.
Maokai and Pantheon, and the overall draft may be easier for Towson, but I don't know. It's gonna be
you have to. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, the Maokai lane, I don't know how new Maokai does into GP, but I'm assuming very well because he kind of bullies almost all the top laners now after the rework.
Yeah, but GP, I think he got buffed pretty recently. He does some pretty disgusting things to melee top laners.
Yeah, and I think he was trying to counterpick here, but I don't think Maokai cares.
Yeah, I don't, unless there are like if he is very, very competent on Gangplank, I think he can get, I don't know if he can get a solo kill unless something pretty drastic happens, but I think he can bully the Maokai pretty hard, but it's a tank.
Yeah.
He presses R.
We already saw the power of Maokai. Maokai support basically ran over half the team last game.
Yeah, and this is just Maokai with even more gold.
Yes, exactly. And without a support item, you can go like a full tank item, or mythic rather, and that's very helpful for durability.
And then as to what you're saying about the Orianna Pantheon matchup, I think that's pretty good too. I see what you mean, because Orianna has to be very careful with her spacing. If she walks into W range of Pantheon, you're liable to get blown up pretty quick. I'm very curious to see if University of Montana is going to invade here. I feel like they have a very powerful level 1 in comparison to TU. The Braum, Caitlyn, Pantheon can absolutely blow someone up.
Yeah, their level 1 is extraordinarily good. And
it looks like they're paying. I think it's going to be an invade from Montana.
As probably one of the worst level 1s you
TU
can get.
5 points. Yeah.
So just one pick or one sum is what we want here.
No ward in the pixel brush, but it's going to be a bloodbath here.
It is 5v5.
5v5, 1 minute into the game. Who's gonna move first? Oh no.
They know.
You should just flash in. Oh no.
Oh my goodness. Everybody has to flash, right?
4 flashes.
4 flashes. One on our side. There's first blood.
4 flashes and first blood, and a ward on red. That is absolute
a double ward for
insane value for Montana. I do think Nami might come back with a red trinket. Oh no, they did not.
They definitely. Could they have known all 5 though? I don't think they saw them walk in the bush. That was just a guess.
Well, if you see the Echo walking in that aggressively, I think you kind of have to.
You probably should just leave.
Especially when they have a level 1 as powerful as Montana does. You just kind of have to respect it.
Yes. And then here we're going to see potentially another cheese.
Nami going to die here. Almost certainly.
Patience.
And Nami's dead. Very, very sad.
No flash.
An absolute bloodbath. And the Pantheon has double longsword. That is so scary for the Orianna.
Crazy. That is a 1k gold lead at 2 minutes.
Well, we were giving a little bit of a stick to our fellow casters as we were swapping games, saying that they had a much more interesting game. But,
oh my goodness!
Ignite gonna come down a little bit too late.
I was gonna say he needed to flash, but he didn't have flash, and so one auto would have killed. But it forces out of lane, which is really big level 1.
But she does have TP. She's gonna get this wave and very, very. Oh, almost got the double.
Yeah.
But good. That's very worth for the Pantheon because he's already ahead. He doesn't have a shutdown, and he's denying Orianna so much XP. And Jarvan's just sitting there. So Replay DK right now knows exactly where Jarvan is, and I think it's looking like he might try to invade him at his blue.
Yeah, it's definitely. He is moving. He knows.
And the Hex Flash in. Oh my goodness gracious. It is a unplayable.
Unplayable.
And Echo gonna get out of there very cleanly. Just gonna eat over the wall. GP absolutely discombobulated.
This is I've had a lot of conversation with Replay DK and Hex Flash. is one of the most fun summoners, or excuse me, runes.
Yeah, I was
Very strong.
I was tempted to make a comment about it earlier, right before the Caitlyn and the Braum killed the Nami in the bush, but because that's not usually your typical
It is not.
echo secondary.
But you can pick it on all of the engages, and so it fits pretty well into replay DK style of like high tempo, lots of fighting, as you can see right there.
This Jarvan is just crying right now. But maybe it looks like a counter gank might happen here. But he's just going to E out.
That's the map knowledge right there from replay DK. That is a very hard dash over from Echo to make over the big wall.
Yeah, but Echo's just going to clear his whole bot side now. And he's going to get a double scuttle on Jarvan. So it's just Jarvan is sobbing into his cornflakes right now.
Pretty good. And I definitely feel like we're winning 2, well, I guess 3, right, if you count jungle, of the lanes. And that's good, especially when you have a tank top that's playing weak side. The tank doesn't care.
Yeah.
They just want to stand there and take hits.
Jarvan, and not only with this, Jarvan absolutely, he's on a basically spotlights all up and down that top river. He can do absolutely nothing right now, and just no options. Tank, just tank me later. What, Sean? Am I allowed to say his name?
Oh. That's fine.
Oh, the top laner here, Maokai, just playing
Just take
extremely
it.
safe.
You were. Oh, not quite. Good bubble.
MF no mana, so they're probably gonna have to back here. I hate people that play bush rat like this. It's such a good strategy.
It is such a good strategy, especially long range like bow characters like Caitlyn. It's very good. Cecilia
playing
up
it
12 CS at 5. That's 2
Yeah.
waves.
That's a crazy combo there. And
So
just as Nami's flash comes back off cooldown, there goes another 5 minutes. She's gonna have to wait before she can flash again. But Jarvan spotted out in the ward here, so Montana gonna be forced to respect. But they see him recalling, so
Two levels up in the mid lane. Is this a kill? Probably.
2 levels. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh.
2 levels up. What are we up in jungle? Only 1 level, but still 1 level
And
is
he's
6
too afraid
minutes.
to fight them. This is very bizarre. Echo's
Caitlyn-
probably,
oh.
the path comes down. Okay, that was a painful path. I didn't see that yet.
Pantheon.
Just free kills. Wait, another kill here?
That's gonna be.
Oh my goodness.
Avert your eyes, folks. This is gonna be a bit of a murder, I think. Almost no way they can come back from this. A 3K gold lead at 6 minutes.
This is very brutal. The level 1, the bush cheese, the blue steel, all of these are excellent early game moves from the University of Montana.
Yep. Very, very happy to see this from them.
Oh, someone misses the other casters. They'll be back later. Well, not tonight, but hopefully not tonight.
Well, they wouldn't be back tonight because we get game 3. Because they got to go first and got to go to bed early.
Is that how that works? Or
I think so. I'm declaring that.
Okay, you're declaring. Okay, perfect.
They get to go to bed early and be comfortable, and we have to. But we also get to cast the third game in case there is one. But
It's
I would put very, very long odds on there being a third game right now, unless this G. Oh, the GP didn't go first strike, so they are not going to be able to push their lead in top lane as much as they might be able to.
Yeah, so he wants to hard bully, which is not. That is not how you want to play GP into a tank. You want to hyperscale.
Yeah, you want to just. You want to sit here and do nothing? I'll sit here and do nothing and make more gold than you.
Yeah.
And be more, hopefully, more relevant than you later. But actually, funnily enough, the Grass Rune used to proc as a melee on GPQ, but
Yes.
they have recently nerfed it, so it works range. So you don't get as much healing or
It was
the
very toxic.
HP. Yep.
Very
But
toxic.
even still, not very fun to play against.
No, just a kind of you just taking cues to the face of the melee top line, which is fine
But-
because it seems winning.
Maokai passive is pretty useful because every
true.
time, I don't know if the folks at home are. Chat is not feeling neglected. I saw it immediately at the corner of my eye as soon as you said it. But Maokai passive works to where every time you get hit by an enemy ability or use one of your own abilities, it not delays, but it takes some cooldown off. But yeah, the Echo are going to come out and Jarvan going to die here. and as well as the Orianna. Flash to save, but oh no! But wow,
That was
that's
and that was a GP ult too. So that was
a lot
of commitment.
invested.
GP ult is really long CD level 1. Very unfortunate.
Yeah, it's almost already a quarter out cooldown though. So.
Just some bot lane shenanigans.
The E backwards to get in range of the MF, but she's just gonna press W and run away like a little scaredy cat.
Very unfortunate. Good trades all around the map. Still almost 3k up. Or no, over 3.5k. I can't do math. Unfortunate bubble. Cecilia very confident, not even moving when the bubble goes out.
She's got a Braum there. Braum's a bit of an alpha male.
He's an interesting champ.
Gonna lose the barrel war, unfortunately, and he might die here.
Oh, GP ult though, so he can't do anything super.
Huh. I feel like he could have flash autoed there. Oh, and we get teleported away from bot lane when the MF ult comes out to
Perfect.
see Pantheon gonna kill, and he is 6-1 at 10 minutes. He is absolutely unstoppable. He has his mythic already. He's is there a button to press to see the goal? Is it J? Oh. Yeah, he is 2,000 gold up on the Orianna.
Doing pretty good. This is
And
I'm a
he's
big fan of this dive.
it's
And
unstoppable.
They can get out for free.
Yeah.
While the
Pantheon-
jungler's taking the rift. So that was very, very risky, but they are very far ahead.
Yeah. It does look like GP is going to go towards the Essence Reaver here. So he is going full glass cannon. He wants to blow up the Pantheon or the Caitlyn later on in this game.
Hello, chat.
But again, grasp an interesting rune to do that if you're trying to go for the one-shot
Yeah.
dubstep
Kind of
ultra combo.
And it might be that he just plays like a lot of like solo queue panth, which you want like grasp for survivability is technically better in like hard lanes, but it's a Maokai, so it's not a hard lane.
Yeah. And you could just be farming gold off him the whole time. But he's going to get a plate from the Demolish proc.
Yeah.
Maybe that's more than he would have gotten from the first strike. at
He's
this point.
600 up on his lane opponent, right?
Yeah.
That's a winning lane right there for TU.
Not all hope is lost, but not far from it either. Oh,
Steals all around.
oh, every single little bird.
Not the big one.
Yeah, come on to me, Orianna. Let's see how well that goes for you.
Just
And
health,
then
one copy.
have health with no damage back because of the Eclipse Shield. Very cool. And that's going to be mid-turret going down here, I think. Orianna forced to walk away. Or she just dies anyway.
And this is the rotation that we want to see, and our team is moving much faster nowadays, where support is roaming around the map, and this is just
This is just them slapping with their wallets. What, 6k gold up?
yeah, they're very far ahead, and this is maybe 2S, probably only one. Promise is only one. No, oh no, and a flash, and Mike just one shot.
And that's the Caitlyn ult.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious. They want to out of this game. I'm a very strong mental player myself, I must say, but I would be spamming FF. This is a 15 angle.
And technically, the NECC does allow you to forfeit in game. You are not required to play out of series. You can just forfeit unless it's on stream.
Oh, on NECC
You're
stream.
not allowed, yeah, unless it's on NECC stream, you're not allowed to forfeit that game. But if they wanted to leave, they could.
If there's ever going to be a game against forfeit in NECC, this is one of the likely candidates. They are down 7,000 gold at 12 minutes.
Yeah,
They
that's
have
a lot.
Yeah, they're almost double their gold.
That's a big number.
Yeah. But
Wow, look at this CSing from Cecilia.
yeah, oh
Nine a
my,
minute, maybe?
nine,
Man, at least high eights. That's very good.
just adding insult to injury there. Not only are they up 3 kills on the bot lane, they're also up, what, 25 CS? Which is not too shabby either.
And I've never seen Hurricane Lover play Braum, but has worked out very, very well.
Yeah, I would credit half the level 1 to Braum. So, basically already there, you've won the game. So, can't get too mad about that.
Gets hit by the Nami bubble again. I've seen him get hit by every Nami bubble. The one critique.
It was the cannon minion. He
Going
wanted
for the cannon minion.
Can you blame a brother? It's the cannon minion. And GP, this is what we said. He has his oranges, but only so much CC you can oranges, but he is forced to flash, and we'll make it out alive, but not without paying a little bit of a price.
Gonna dive? I don't think Pantheon.
No, Pantheon's ulting.
Pantheon's
That's
ulting.
fear, and they have a very powerful. I didn't even realize in draft, but they have a very powerful dive comp.
Yeah. Lots of resets, right? 2. And
Yeah.
Pantheon, the
Maokai W drops turret. You have the Echo ult.
Yep.
And the Pantheon doesn't block turret shots anymore, but being able to fly across the map
It's very useful. For
is, yeah.
Objective bounties go up, and 2 people have to run away from Pantheon because it's terrifying.
Brahm's gonna be there. Maybe did an overextension, but gonna get engaged on. And I think Brahm's gonna make it out here.
Opt out.
Eat my word.
That's what Braum does. He just
He-
leaves or goes in, either one.
It's just a ninja taboo gap. Or what's it called now? It's not ninja taboo.
Steel plated.
Oh,
caps?
plated steel caps.
Plated steel caps. That was close.
Oh, getting a little bit greedy there.
And they don't know that there's 4 there. I don't think.
No, I don't think they know there was 4 there, otherwise they wouldn't walk that close. But
Yeah.
especially not with Caitlyn all by herself. They're
In our
gonna.
hearts, it's still Tabby's. Correct, Majestic's portal. It will always be Tabby's. Just
Where's
like I
the-
call Control Word's Pink Word.
Where's the sword? You feel ignored. Well, I am very sorry that you feel that way, but unfortunately, we cannot cater to the needs of every single individual. We will try our best, but we make no promises.
He does avoid the stun.
But he is absolutely doomed here.
Yeah, he's very dead.
He might make that goal, and he will. But
That
that's
is
like a
some kind of win, right?
but that's like a 40-second cooldown. Oh, he's not level 11 yet, but so it'll be a
So
60
second cooldown.
Where's the Soraka top? You know what? If you want to lock in Soraka top in their games, you are more than free to do that. But I think our top laner is not a big fan of the Enchanter top strategy.
Enchanter, I think Yumi top was a thing there for a while in Korea, right? Or was it Yumi? It was Yumi mid.
It was Zillion top.
Was it Zillion top?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure there was a Yumi like in a solo lane for a while.
Yeah, it was Enchanter's top where you take a spell thief.
Yeah.
And you run around with your jungle.
Oh, that's why they did the support item nerf or whatever. You can only have like 1 in the game, otherwise it like reduces the value or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because people were just running around with their jungler, and turns out top laners are useless. Even if they have a billion gold and they don't pick a hyper carry.
Yep.
You're
Oh, interesting ult here.
But-
Bomb is just there. And I do not think Cecilia needed to blow the heal. Big double ults here, no flash.
where's the MF ult?
Yeah, where is the MF ult? Oh, Cecilia dies. Is it
But-
okay. I was about to say close. Close is not the correct word.
Oh, there's the MF. But she's gonna die too. Oh, what an E by. Wait, why did?
Where did it? It just went away. Where did the Q go from the Echo?
I don't know, but that was a really nice follow,
Yeah. Very
flash follow with the E. But also interesting that our jungler did not try to keep going for that because
Yeah.
he had the ult. He could have easily
You
just.
could have
kinda-
just kept going. That's what Echo does. But replay DK known for going for objectives, and I'm sure that he was calling off.
He wants the Rift Herald. He wants Shelly.
And then
and
you
they're
collect
just-
the dragon too, right?
Yeah.
Then you're on Soul Point. We see lots of highlighted messages. Fiddle support is no longer a thing, unfortunately. R.I.P. Fiddles.
Rest in peace, Cobalts. You won't be missed.
The Crow and ARAM. It was the best, but it's gone.
Did you know? It was not the best in A-Round.
It was so fun though.
It was fun when you were the
Yes.
fiddle, but there's a 1 in 10 chance that you're the fiddle in the game.
That's very true. That's very true. It was extraordinarily awful, especially when you were with randoms and your random teammate just ran with you and you were just dying to it. GP ulting the dragon. The vision, maybe? No, they have vision.
No, it's gonna get steal it. Watch this. This is gonna be an absolute shambles. But no, they just waited out. Oh no! Jarvan and Orion about to absolutely get walloped again.
Oh no!
They're up 10k gold.
Oh my! It's 3-21 at 18:20 on the clock. That is rough.
They're up almost a true 10k gold. They're like 9,500 gold behind.
That is when you look at the. Maybe we can. It bugs out a lot, but if we see the gold graph at the end, it is going to be a mountain, just a cliff up.
Yeah, I don't think at any point. Maybe at one point there was a 20 gold lead if Nami got a spell thief's proc, but that's
At the very beginning.
at the very beginning. That is the only way they could have had a gold lead this entire game.
Okay, yeah.
If Nami got one spell thief's proc before their entire team got murdered.
Yeah, that is the only chance for them to even show up on that graph. Ooh,
Oh,
there's the
see?
TP string.
That's
Nobody likes playing against that.
I would wager first strike there, and
Maybe
they
you could.
die because they'd have more gold, and they'd have first strikes.
And 9% extra damage, right, from first strike.
Yeah.
Oh, he was
That's
trying.
humongous.
Flash
Am I allowed to say? Okay, my co-casters informed me I cannot use some verbiage on stream, so I will refrain from saying that. But I'm pretty sure you knew what word I meant. But
I'm sure people did.
just an alpha move backing right in the face of GP when you're on 10% HP.
Ooh,
And they can just engage
look
off
at how
gold.
fast his mouth pedal is now. It's so fast.
Yeah, it speeds up too as it goes further along.
That is insane.
They look at this. Maokai is literally face tanking 4 people on their
Well,
team.
that was actually unfortunate from the Nami. The Pantheon landed right in the Nami. Obviously unintentional. Or maybe it's intentional. I don't know. The Nami might be,
But Montana just able. It's Montana's game to lose, and they're gonna try and 2 or 3-man Baron here. Oh no, I'm not a huge fan of this. There is a non-zero chance this gets stolen. Hopefully they turn, or Jarvan can just int.
some weird, like, MF? Do something. There you go. Oh.
And that's the problem, like you said at the
Yeah.
beginning, absolutely blocking every bit of that MF ult.
Yeah. Well, Braum unfortunately has 2 ways to stop it too, but they did stop the Baron. That was a.
Uh-oh. Bop.
Oh, the GP was walking. He just needed to stand still. I would, if it was a random and I was in a solo game, I would think
There'd be a question mark there,
that'd be a
you say?
right there.
You see they're expanding the
The pings, yeah.
pings.
The pings will be pretty fun. Oh, because you can ping. I want to do an objective now.
Yeah, there'll be 8 pings. There's even a vote to do an objective,
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
which I think is hilarious. There were some memes going around.
Yeah, you could like say drag question mark and throw up an FM.
Or,
A little toxic.
I saw some edits of like your jungler is getting jungle diff. Do you but do you want to kick this player from the game? Oh, but man, this is
That was a best fight that TU could ask.
most of Montana lived on 10-20% HP
Yeah.
there, so
Just even 1,000 more gold across a couple characters, they would have gotten it.
and if Braum didn't have a Z. I think
And if Braum didn't exist, yes.
or even if he just used the Z earlier.
Yeah,
but
that's true. That's very.
oh, and looks like Nami is going to make it out alive. I spoke too soon.
That was some minor, like, that wasn't BM, but like overconfidence is the word. You know, I think the Hyde turned away because he was like, clearly the sport's dead, but lives on like 2% life.
Yeah. If I were them right now, I'd be going ape. For no reason, I'd just be running at them, trying to kill them as much as I could. But then again, I don't play in competitive. I play.
You're not a collegiate League of
I'm not
Legends
a.
player?
No, I tried out. I didn't get invited to return though.
Oh, well.
Even though I popped off
Did
in
you
both
pop
the
off?
games. I went like I think 9 and like 2 on Echo Jungle. Like
Oh, you
9.
played Echo Jump? Oh, I remember that.
And then I played a top game where I was York, and my team kind of changed that, unfortunately. So I was like 3-1, but the rest of the bot. Oh, but it's gonna get canceled. The MF ult got canceled midway through.
There's a person. Wow.
Take a shockwave. We'll
If,
find them all.
if the Oriana had any gold, more than one item, it would have done some damage. But this is just my bet.
It might
under
be
a
the
turret,
game.
and then under the next turret, and they still get all 5.
No, it's not going to be game. I think they're just going to leave for Soul.
It could end. They have 15 seconds.
No, no way.
I think so.
No way they end in time. Actually, never mind.
I think there's a way.
My mistake.
This is about it, I think, folks.
Oh, yep. And that was a very eventful game. It went in a very different way from the
Yes,
game one.
very, very much so. I think just on game state we might have lost the bet. You guys decide. That game was very exciting, but less intense than the previous game.
Yeah. Somewhat of a snooze fest, but only based on the fact that it was entirely one-sided. Can I
Look at the? Well, that's me. Don't show me.
Advanced detail.
Yeah. Correct. Oh, it's bugged. Sorry, folks. We can't show you the gold graph. Replay DK, great job. We won. My co-caster, Duck, how'd you feel about that game?
That was a fun one to watch. If only for the fact that it was a complete and turbo gap by every single lane.
Very true. No,
Top lane went even.
Even losing, yeah.
But that's to be expected.
Yeah, true, I guess, for GP in the tank. I think, folks, we might end it there. We are trying to find the game.
But unfortunately...
Oh, no, you can't because it's a private match.
Private match.
NAOP.GP doesn't show it anymore. Well, I apologize that we can't show the gold graph because it would look comical. GG's to Towson University. We very much appreciate... Oh, no, we're looking at my...
Oh, no. Sorry.
No. Anyway.
There we go.
Thank you so much for tuning in, folks. Doc, any last words?
Yeah, I disagree. We very clearly were clear.
The better casters?
By far and away.
I think it was an excellent job from both parties, and we had, unfortunately, the more boring game. When do you see a double ace? Double aces are awesome.
Yeah. But we have Dean to thank for being maybe a little bit forgetful.
Yes,
but,
very, very true, very, very true. All right, folks, have a great night. Thank you for tuning in. We will see you probably tomorrow.
Yeah, for Overwatch.
Overwatch, yep.
I probably won't be here, but...
No, you probably will not. Somebody will, though. All right.
I'll see you people around.
Goodbye.
Bye.